I'm 42, a single mom, and I thought I knew everything there was to know about my son. He's 19, smart, quiet, a little awkward but kind. We've always been close, or so I believed. He stayed home after graduation to save money while taking online college courses. I've always supported that. I've been proud of him. But 3 weeks ago, something happened that cracked everything open. It started with a missed call from a number I didn't recognize. I ignored it, probably spam, but then they called again. And again. Then a voicemail came through. I'll never forget it. A woman's voice, confused and panicked. Hi, I don't know how else to say this, but I think your son is the father of my daughter. My heart dropped. I didn't even know he was dating anyone, let alone having unprotected sex, or apparently, a child. I called back immediately. No answer. I texted, tried to stay calm, and just asked who she was. She replied a few minutes later, said her name was Mariah and she didn't want to cause drama but really needed answers. She sounded scared. She thought I already knew. I didn't. When I asked my son about her that evening, his face went pale. I knew right then he wasn't going to lie. He's not a great liar, anyway, but I also knew I wasn't ready for what I was about to hear. He didn't say much, just that yes, he knew Mariah, and yes, there was a baby. A little girl. Born 3 months ago. And yes, he was probably the father. I felt like the air was sucked out of the room. I asked him why he didn't tell me. His answer? I didn't think it would matter. We're not together anymore. She doesn't want me involved. That might have been enough to leave it there. But something in his voice, something was off. I pressed him more. And then he admitted the part that shattered me. He's not just paying child support. He's been spending weekends with them, staying over, helping out, acting like a dad. He's even been calling Mariah his girlfriend again, to her family, to her friends. He's been living a second life while telling me he's studying at a friend's house. And that was only the start of what I found out. After he dropped that on me, I just sat there, staring at him. He looked like a scared little kid, not the same calm, responsible boy I raised. And suddenly, everything started clicking into place. The weekends he claimed he was crashing at his study buddy's house, the weird secrecy around his phone, how he suddenly had less money even though I wasn't charging him rent. I asked him how long this had been going on. He said since just after graduation. So basically, for the past year. I asked him if he loved her. He shrugged, said it was complicated. They weren't officially together, but she let him stay when he wanted. Sometimes she wanted space. Sometimes they acted like a couple. Sometimes not. It sounded like a mess. But the worst part? He chose to keep it from me. Me, his mom, the one person who's been there through everything. The one who worked 2 jobs to keep food on the table and make sure he had every opportunity possible. I didn't even know he was sexually active, let alone co-parenting a child in secret. I asked him what he planned to do. He just sat there, staring at the floor. No plan. No answers. Just guilt and panic. He said Mariah had asked him to keep it quiet because she didn't want her family judging her, especially since she's only 20 and still living at home. Her parents don't even know he sometimes sleeps over. They think he's just the baby's friend. So now we have 2 secret families, him hiding from me, and her hiding him from her family. I told him I needed to meet her. That I wouldn't say anything rude or disrespectful, but I needed to look this girl in the eye and understand what was really going on. He begged me not to. And that's when I realized, there's more. There's a lot more. And whatever it is, I wasn't ready. I didn't push him that night. I was too overwhelmed. But the next morning, after he left for his group project, I couldn't sit still. I didn't want to be that parent, but I needed to know what I was dealing with. So I did something I'd never done before. I went into his room and checked his drawers. Not proud of it. But I was desperate. There wasn't much. Some school notes, headphones, half-eaten snacks, and one unopened letter from the county courthouse. I opened it. It was about paternity testing. Filed 2 months ago. I sat down, heart racing. My son had been to court and never told me. The paperwork said he'd agreed to take a DNA test. It didn't say the results, but just seeing the dates told me enough. He was already this deep when he was still telling me he was busy with finals. I called the number listed on the paper. Told them I was the boy's mother. They wouldn't release details without his permission. But then she said something I didn't expect. If this is about the custody modification hearing, your son should have received a notice for next Friday. Custody modification. So it wasn't just visits and overnights. They were already talking about legal custody. I couldn't breathe. I tried calling him. He didn't answer. I didn't leave a message, I was too shaken. Instead, I sat down and just stared at the wall. When he got home later that evening, I was calm. Too calm. He looked at me and knew immediately. I asked him one question. When were you going to tell me about the custody hearing? He looked stunned. Like I'd slapped him. Then he sat down and confessed everything. He didn't try to deny it. Just dropped his backpack, sat down at the kitchen table, and put his head in his hands. Then he said something I'll never forget. She's planning to move out of her parents' house, and she wants me to move in with her and the baby. I just stared at him. Apparently, Mariah had found a small rental through a coworker and wanted to get out from under her parents' roof. She was tired of hiding everything, tired of sneaking around, tired of pretending her daughter's father was just a family friend who sometimes helped babysit. And here's the kicker, she didn't want full custody anymore. She wanted shared custody. Which meant my son wouldn't just be visiting anymore. He'd be expected to co-parent. Live there. Pay bills. Provide for the baby like any father would. And she'd already started the legal process. The hearing was scheduled. Lawyers had been involved. My son had signed paperwork without telling me. I was stunned silent. He said he didn't tell me because he was scared. He knew I'd try to talk him out of it. He knew I'd think he was throwing his life away. He said he wanted to do the right thing and didn't want to look weak in front of Mariah. I asked him if he even wanted this. He hesitated. Said he didn't know. Said he loved his daughter but never imagined being a dad right now. Said some days he felt ready, and others he felt like he was drowning. That's when he finally showed me a photo of the baby. A tiny, chubby-cheeked girl with his exact eyes. And just like that, I felt everything shift. I realized I wasn't just angry or blindsided, I was heartbroken. Because this wasn't just his secret life. It was my granddaughter. And I never even knew she existed. I must have stared at that photo for 5 minutes straight. My granddaughter. My granddaughter. Born 3 months ago and I didn't even know her name. I finally asked, and he said it softly. Ava. Her name was Ava. That broke something in me. Not out of anger anymore, but grief. Not just for myself, but for her. For all the moments I missed. Her birth. Her first smile. Those early weeks when she probably fit in one hand. I could have been there. I would have been there. But instead, I'd been left completely in the dark. And not just by Mariah, by my own son. He tried to explain. Said he didn't know how to tell me. Said everything happened so fast. That Mariah wasn't even sure she wanted him involved at first, and by the time she changed her mind, they were already knee-deep in this arrangement. And that's when I learned another bombshell. Mariah's parents still don't know he's the father. He's been sneaking into their home, pretending to be the friend from school who helps out, sleeping in her room some weekends when they're out of town, holding Ava like he's just a babysitter, changing diapers while they're in the next room. The plan is for her to move out in a few weeks, and then they'll tell her parents. Once everything's already settled. My son, barely 19, is juggling online classes, a newborn daughter, a complicated relationship, and lying to an entire household every weekend. He looked exhausted just saying it out loud. And me? I didn't even know what to feel anymore. I wasn't sure if I wanted to scream or cry. Because the worst part? He still hadn't introduced me to her. He never even thought to. That night I couldn't sleep. I just lay there, thinking about her, Ava. This little girl, part of my blood, living her entire life without ever knowing I exist. I thought about all the times I walked past his door, thinking he was gaming with friends or studying, when he was actually texting Mariah or watching videos of his daughter taking her first steps. The betrayal wasn't just in the hiding, it was in how easily he seemed to compartmentalize it. Like he had 2 lives, and I didn't belong in either one fully. The next morning, I asked him flat out if he ever planned to introduce me to Ava. He said he didn't know. He kept saying that. I don't know. Like he couldn't make a single decision on his own. Like this wasn't already real. He told me he wanted to, but Mariah wasn't ready. She was afraid I'd judge her. That I'd get in the way. That I'd try to take over or make things harder. That stung. I'd never even met the girl, and already she thought I was some threat. I asked him if he told her anything about me. He just looked away. So I asked a different question. Does she even know my name? He didn't answer. That silence told me everything. She didn't. I wasn't just out of the loop, I was erased. Not even a mention. Like I didn't exist. That's when I got up, grabbed my coat, and told him I was going to meet her. That he could come with me, or I'd go alone. And that's when he finally broke. He begged me not to. Said it wasn't time. That Mariah was going through a lot and that showing up would only push her further away. He kept saying let me fix this, please. But I wasn't sure I could trust him to fix anything anymore. Still, I gave him a choice. 2 days. He had 2 days to bring her here, with the baby. No drama, no pressure, just a visit. Just a start. If he didn't, I'd handle it myself. He didn't speak to me for the rest of the day. Not out of anger, I think he was just scared. He barely ate dinner, spent most of the evening pacing around the backyard on his phone. I didn't ask who he was talking to. I already knew. The next morning, he left early. Said he had to figure something out. I didn't see him until after dark. And when he came in, he looked like he hadn't slept in a week. He stood in the doorway and said 3 words I wasn't expecting. "They'll come tomorrow." I didn't ask for details. I didn't care if they were awkward or nervous or fake smiling their way through it. I just wanted to see her. I wanted to meet my granddaughter. I barely slept that night. I cleaned the house 3 times, even though it was already spotless. I baked cookies, something I hadn't done in years. I pulled out a box from the attic that I'd saved for someday, little things I held onto from when my son was a baby. A blanket. A rattle. A stuffed bear with one eye sewn on crooked. I laid them out in the guest room. Just in case. When the doorbell rang the next afternoon, my hands were shaking. My son opened the door. And there she was. Mariah. She looked young. Younger than I expected. Small, quiet, holding a baby carrier in one hand and a diaper bag in the other. No makeup, dark circles under her eyes, and a guarded expression that made it clear she didn't want to be here. But the moment I looked down and saw that tiny face peeking out from the blanket, everything else melted away. There she was. Ava. Big brown eyes. A tuft of soft hair. My son's nose. Mariah's lips. And something in her expression that looked familiar. Like a little echo of myself, staring back. I didn't say anything. I just smiled, stepped aside, and said, "Come in." Mariah barely looked at me when she stepped inside. She held Ava like a shield, eyes scanning the room like she was waiting for judgment. I didn't give her any. I just asked if she wanted water. She nodded. We sat in silence at first, me on one side of the room, her on the other, while my son hovered awkwardly near the kitchen. He didn't know what to do with himself, and honestly, I didn't either. But then Ava made this little squeaky noise, like a hiccup laugh, and my instincts kicked in. I reached out without thinking. Mariah stiffened, but after a pause, she slowly handed her over. I hadn't held a baby in almost 20 years. And just like that, I remembered everything. The weight. The warmth. The smell of baby powder and milk. How small the world feels when you're holding someone that new. Ava looked up at me like she had no idea how many lives she'd just cracked wide open. I asked how old she was exactly. Mariah said she'd just turned 3 months. That lined up with the court papers. She was born in February. Quiet baby, she added. Hated naps. Loved music. Was starting to laugh when tickled on her left side. I listened to every word like it was gold. I was soaking in pieces of a life I never got to be part of. After a while, my son stepped out to grab something from his car, and for the first time, Mariah and I were alone. She didn't speak right away. But then she said something I wasn't expecting. "I didn't hate you. I was afraid of you." She said she thought I'd be angry, that I'd look down on her. That I'd try to take over or blame her for everything. She'd built this version of me in her head, a bitter, judgmental mother who'd make things harder. Then she looked down and whispered, "But you're not like that." That moment cracked something open between us. For the first time, I saw her not as the girl who kept my son's secret, but as a scared, exhausted young mother who'd been trying to keep her world from falling apart. And maybe, she wasn't the villain in this story. Maybe none of us were. The tension didn't vanish, but it softened. That invisible wall between me and Mariah? It didn't fall, but it cracked. We spent the next hour talking, mostly about Ava. I asked gentle questions. Mariah offered quiet answers. I learned that Ava hated socks but loved being swaddled. That her middle name was Elise. That Mariah had been having trouble finding childcare now that her maternity leave was ending. That last part stayed with me. I asked who was helping during the week. She said no one. Her mom worked full-time. Her dad didn't do babies. My son helped when he could, but most of the time, she was on her own. 19 years old, full course load, part-time job, and a baby. And she was doing it with no daycare, no financial help beyond what little my son could offer, and a mountain of unspoken pressure. No wonder she wanted to disappear. Hide from me. From everything. That night, after they left, I sat at the kitchen table for a long time. I watched the empty baby bottle Mariah forgot to pack up. I ran my thumb over the table's edge, the same place my son used to drum his fingers when he was nervous before a test. And I thought about all the years I spent raising him alone. No one showed up with casseroles. No one offered babysitting. No one told me it was okay to not have it all together. I didn't want that for her. I didn't want that for Ava. And I knew right then that this wasn't just a visit. This was the beginning of something. The secret wasn't just out. It had become real. A week passed, then two. And everything changed. Mariah started texting me. At first, it was little things, photos of Ava in a new outfit, questions about feeding schedules, a meme that made her laugh. Then one evening, she asked if I was free to babysit for an hour so she could run errands. I said yes without thinking. That night, for the first time, it was just me and Ava. No tension. No awkward glances. Just a sleepy baby, a warm bottle, and a woman in her 40s who hadn't realized how much she missed being needed. After that, things moved faster than I expected. Mariah got offered more hours at work. My son started splitting his time between both homes more evenly. And I started watching Ava a few days a week, just to help out, just to give them both a little breathing room. The first time Mariah dropped her off, she stayed in the car for a while. I watched through the window as she wiped her eyes before driving off. She was still trying to be strong. I never brought it up. Last weekend, they all came over for dinner, my son, Mariah, and Ava. We sat around the table like a family. Ava was fussy, teething, but she settled the moment I picked her up. At one point, she clutched my necklace and wouldn't let go. And something just clicked. I wasn't angry anymore. Not at my son. Not at Mariah. Not even at the fact that I missed those first months. Because now, I'm part of it. I'm here. It's not the life I imagined for my son. It's not the path I pictured. But it's real. It's messy and complicated and full of long nights and unanswered questions, but it's ours. I told my son that night that I was proud of him, not because he had it all figured out, but because he didn't run. He stayed. He tried. Even when it was hard. Even when he got it wrong. And he broke down crying. It was the first time I'd seen him cry since he was 12. So no, I don't have all the answers. But I do have a granddaughter. Her name is Ava Elise, and she has my eyes.